All right, why not? Let's kick off, hey? Okay, so my name is Michael Leworthy. I'm a product manager in the Windows Server BG in Redmond, and I primarily focus on SMB and the product solutions that we create for SMB in the Windows Server environment. And when we thought about this type of session, we thought we could take this session in sort of many different ways. We could do this big demo fest and show you features and functionality. We thought that we could do a big slideware and show you market opportunities and stuff like that. And I thought, well, you know, the easiest way is I've got all these great experts with me here at TechEd, so why don't we just walk through some slides to help position some of these products, where and how you may use them, why you would use them in a certain way, why we built them. Have a look at some demonstrations of these products around the core features and functionality to help you distinguish the difference between them, because you know, in the SMB space there can be up to 6 different Windows Server SKUs, which are a choice for you as a partner or you as a customer to actually deploy before you even look at functions and features. And then get these guys up in these chairs so you can actually ask them lots of questions. And we'll talk through some scenarios. We'll talk about migration tips and tricks and troubleshooting. We'll talk about why certain customers are looking at going certain ways. We'll talk about the cloud and what does it actually mean for SMB. You know, are we all running towards the cloud at 100 miles an hour, or are we all running away? So we're going to talk a lot about how all this works for SMB to really help define what is the first server solution and the right server solution for the SMB environment. So as I said, we're going to look through some product overviews and product demonstrations. I'm going to look up some SKU comparisons, and I'm going to bring up the panel QA, and we can talk a lot about these. I've got guys from the engineering team. I've got Dean from the multi-point server team as well to talk about how we're looking at server attach into the Windows Server space and the first server space as well, and some great participation from our partner ISV team as well. So we can really get to some of the core questions around, well, you know, what is the right solution we're looking for in the Windows Server environment. So what I want to do is I want to show you finding the right server. You know, there's a million ways to find the right server for a customer or for yourself. And effectively, in the end, it's going to be based on a need. What is the need of that server? Is it a single requirement, such as I need to host an LOB application, I need to run a SQL application, an accounting package on top of that, I need a server to do that, or it's at some form of infrastructure. You know, I need something to help back up my clients, or as it can be a form of both. So there's definitely multiple different ways to look at the right solution in a Windows Server SMB organization. But what I want to walk through is, if you're going to approach this agnostically, what's one way you could definitely look at it? Well, we've looked at different ways to cut this, and this is sort of just one way in looking at potential user numbers and also potential primary roles. Now, the primary role for most SMB organizations is email and collaboration, but it's effectively email, and a lot of deployments of first server or right server solutions actually revolve around our email functionality. And then we look at attached services onto that, further attached services for Windows infrastructure, security infrastructure, and LOB type application infrastructure. So let's start looking at these segments and exactly what we can do in this space. Now, the 1 to 15 segment is actually quite small, has been, you know, a fairly underserved segment, because generally these are, you know, peer-to-peer or point-to-point type or peer-to-peer organizations. They have a client, they have a router, they utilize email in the cloud, mostly Hotmail or LiveMail or maybe even hosted Exchange. But we're looking at a lot of these solutions now for focusing in this 1 to 15 space. How do we provide server infrastructure for the 1 to 15 space? Now, most of these organizations will make a decision to get a server based on usually one of two things. One, they have these files everywhere all over these desktops and they want to centralize it, or they've lost something. One of their laptops has crashed and they've lost the payroll, they've lost the customer list, they've lost the pitch for the presentation they were going to do tomorrow. And that usually defines them to look at some sort of solution, a backup solution or a centralized storage solution, and all this plays into it. But take a step back and think about this holistically. If you're a customer, or you're a user yourself, or you're an organization yourself, or you're a partner approaching those, there's some interesting ways to think about how we cut servers. Now, if we look at it from a workload point of view, and if we look at email as workload, this is an interesting way of introducing these servers to yourself and also to your customers. So we look at a preferred email deployment. So say if we don't have a preferred email deployment. In this case, we're already utilizing an online email system, or we've got some form of collaboration system, and really I'm looking for just an infrastructure type solution. Now, there's a couple of options here. Our second tier is usually based around what is the preferred management and flexibility options. Now, this is all going to be based around role-based deployment. So if I want something that has very simplified management, I'm in the 1 to 15 space, I don't have a lot of IT budget, and I want to look at something in a simplified management point of view, my choices are actually fairly limited and fairly clear. And they're going to be based on exactly the requirements I need for this solution. So I'm a very, very small organization, and all I'm looking for is entry-level centralization of data. I've got some disparate data across my clients, or I want to do client backup. I've got no real need for LOB on-premise support. I'm utilizing email in the cloud or some application in the cloud or online, and really all I'm looking for is a server that centralizes my data and backs up my clients. Well, Windows Small Business Server Essentials and Windows Storage Server Essentials are going to really provide that. Now, the difference between these two products is focused on the support required for that end user business. If they require a LOB application, centralized identity management, if they want to hook into cloud and for online services, if they want to host localized LOB services on-premise, then Small Business Server Essentials is going to be much more focused for them as a solution server. However, if they're just looking for an entry-level NAS appliance, then Windows Storage Server 2008 R2 Essentials is going to be more prevalent for them. Now, how many people here know about Storage Server Essentials? I'm doing a great job at marketing this product, aren't I? So, let's talk about Windows Storage Server Essentials. So Windows Storage Server Essentials itself is built on Windows Server 2008 R2. It's focused at an entry-level NAS appliance. So it's a OEM-led NAS appliance that you buy. It's a form factor NAS box. So it's not available as a DVD. You can't buy it from Amazon or Newegg and install it on any server. And it's focused on easy deployment, sort of the plug and play into an existing environment, plug and play it into a router type environment. And it's focused on two core things: centralization of your files and your folders, and backup of your clients, and ensuring the backup capability of the server is there. Let me show you an example of this so you really, really understand this. Now, one of the things that you may see, how many people here have seen SBS Essentials? Well, a little bit more, which is good. So when we see SBS Essentials, you're going to see a lot of similarities between our storage server product and our SBS Essentials product. And the reason for this is we're very much focused on simplified management. One of the concepts of any small business server, especially in that under 25 space, is taking the complexity of user management, computer management, health monitoring, which are very scary terms for most small businesses, and making it really, really easy. And we do this by a very simplified dashboard. Windows Storage Server 2008 R2 Essentials has many of the similar functionalities that you'll find in SBS Essentials. But the killer is it has many of the functionalities that you actually find in Windows Home Server 2011. In fact, they're very, very similar. A lot of the differences between the Windows Home Server product and the SBS Essentials product is it can actually support more users, a little bit more hardware, and one of the big things it can do, and this is one of the reasons why we call it an entry-level server or a phenomenal server for backup, is it can join an existing infrastructure or domain. So if we looked at the first server on site tool that I just walked through, if you're in a small organization and if you're just looking for centralized storage and backup of clients and a backup of the server, then this entry-level NAS appliance definitely can meet your need. Hasn't got any support for LOB applications on-premise or Active Directory, has very limited hooking into the cloud. But it can definitely support that type of small business. But we can extend it and we can attach it to existing infrastructure. So if I'm an SBS customer, if I've got SBS 2003 or SBS 2008, and I've got 15, 20 clients, those clients aren't backed up. SBS Standard is focused on centralizing your data and backing up your server data. Well, maybe I have a couple of those clients that I want to back up. Windows Storage Server 2008 R2 Essentials provides a phenomenal solution for that client backup. Not just in an SBS environment, but also in a Windows Server environment. You can throw this into any Windows Server environment, connect any client computer to it, and back those client computers up. And the big thing here is that we focus on very simplified user management. So for example, here are my domain users that have just been brought into the SBS environment. And I can control their access to this server. So as I mentioned before, it has very similar functionalities to what we have with Windows Home Server. So it has support for client-based backup for Windows and PC Macs. Windows PCs and Macs. It has support for server-based backup and easy restore. Not only can it restore files and folders, but you can restore entire images down. So for example, if I'm in an organization and I drop my PC and the hard drive goes crash, all I have to do is plug a new hard drive into that PC, plug a USB key in the back, 3 mouse clicks, and my previous backup of my entire PC is ported down to my new laptop. So instead of being down for half a day, or even more, I'm only down 20 or 30 minutes. And it's very simple for me, as the business owner, or myself, as somebody who's just helping out with the IT of that business, to be able to do that themselves. Now, for our partners in the room, there's still a really great opportunity here in deploying and providing a lot more supportive services on top of these solutions. And we'll talk a little bit more about as they go through. Some other functionality that Windows Storage Server Essentials provides is integrated health alerts. So again, very, very simplified ability to look at the health of my connected PCs and determine some really proactive type guidance for them. And guidance that's not cryptic, it's not linking you off to TechNet articles and KB articles. It's guidance that is focused at PC users. Here are the things that you need to do to fix this PC or to fix this problem. So for example, we've got an unformatted hard disk in this server. So here's how to format it. Or if you don't want to do that, here's the link and I'll do it for you. So again, we're really trying to focus on easy day-to-day user management, cutting the costs of that day-to-day user management into the SMB environment. So the brother of this product, of our Windows Storage Server 2008 R2 Essentials product, and as you can see up there, is Windows Small Business Server 2011 Essentials. Now, the SBS 2011 Essentials product is part of our SBS 2011 family. We focus primarily with this product on the 1 to 25 user space, and a space that we like to call both on-premise and hybrid. So the ability to support complete on-premise deployments, so you can definitely host things like Exchange or SQL, your applications on-premise, and they'll integrate into the server exactly like a Windows Server 2008 R2 infrastructure does today, but also providing some simplified hooks into the cloud. In some of our cases, we'll build them for you, in the sense of Office 365 integration to allow automatic user provisioning of both local users and also cloud-enabled users. And in some cases, that's going to be offered by third-party ISVs as well, such as cloud backup vendors, anti-malware vendors, and also line of business tools as well. We're talking to not only the Dynamics CRM team, but we're also talking to the Salesforce.com team about how they can integrate the user administrative management tools and technologies into the SBS Essentials environment. The great thing here in this type of environment, even if they're not looking at a preferred email deployment, SBS Essentials provides them some key opportunities straight out of the box. One, it provides exactly everything that Windows Storage Server Essentials provided before. On-site PC and server backup, easy user management, health alerting for all my PCs. But where SBS Essentials can extend that is it's a domain controller itself, so it actually runs Active Directory fully integrated. Now, because we have Active Directory there, we can do phenomenal identity protection for both my users, but also integrate this single sign-on experience across all my on-site LOB applications. It also supports my entire on-premise LOB application family. So if I want to install applications on the server itself, that is completely supported. If I want to add servers to this infrastructure, I can just add member servers, additional domain controllers into this infrastructure and also grow this infrastructure as much as I want. Up to 25 users, which is the limit for our SPS Essentials product. To give you a quick demonstration of SPS Essentials, keep forgetting I'm on the same machine. This is our SPS Essentials dashboard. And just to remind you, this is our Windows Storage Server dashboard. And this is our SPS Essentials dashboard. Very, very similar. And you'll find that through Windows Home Server 2011, Windows Storage Server 2008 R2, and SPS 2011 Essentials, the user experience is very much the same. The user experience has been designed around a very low IT user, making the user management, the computer management, the health management, the day-to-day operations just incredibly simple in that organization. Really taking the mundane things that partners may do in these organizations and supporting these organizations and just making that a lot more easier for them, or putting that into the hands of the IT business owners into the business owners to be able to do, and let partners focus on things that are very much more strategic for that organization, and really helping that organization's IT grow. Now, as I mentioned before, the Small Business Server Essentials product has integrated Active Directory, so our user integration is when I create a user through our dashboard, that user is created in Active Directory and has all the capability of that Active Directory user. That authentication can be used to authenticate not only to the local system, but to any LOB applications that are on site, but also can be used to authenticate to things such as ADFS or single sign-on systems in the cloud. Now, the great thing about our SPS Essentials product is we provide also a phenomenal provider tool to allow you to extend this out to cloud-enabled solutions, to enable not only single sign-on experiences, but user and maintenance provisioning tools, integration tools. For example, one of the things that you can see here is I have a cloud backup tool fully integrated into the dashboard. What we're trying to focus on is centralizing the administration all into one single space to make that day-to-day operations just so much more easier in that organization. Again, to allow us to focus on what the business does instead of focusing on this complex IT and managing my users, my configuration. Now, just to highlight some more things about our Essentials product, the big concept that we also focus on the SPS Essentials is not only supporting on-premise applications, but also supporting cloud-enabled applications and also supporting anywhere, anytime access. Our SPS Essentials product, including and our Windows Storage Server 2008 R2 product and our Windows Home Server product, also provides this thing called remote web access. Out of the box, almost an extranet out of the box, that allows our users to come in and access information that are within our organization. And that could be anything from shared files and folders, to links, to taking control of PCs inside of my organization through remote desktop services, to actually LOB type applications, either through add-ins or through support of those applications online. The Remote Web Access Portal gives my users very, very similar experiences outside the organization to inside the organization. So what happens if, go back to this. You can also see there, and when we looked at our simplified management versus flexible role-based, the interesting thing here is the solution server focus is on simplified management and pre-installing. Now, when we look at our simplified management or our solutions management versus a solution server versus traditional server, usually the focus is around flexibility and customization. So, for example, our whole Windows Server solution focus is on pre-installing and pre-configuring roles out of the box. So we have things such as Active Directory, IIS, in some cases DHCP, DNS, security services, all this architecture, all pre-configured on the installation straight out of the server. If you look at a traditional Windows server when you install it, it basically sits there and blinks at you and says, what do you want me to be? So there's a lot of cost savings and fast deployment when we talk about our solution servers. But the trade-off is flexibility. Our solution server technologies are never going to be as flexible as the entire Windows Server standard product, for example, enterprise product. There are some technologies that just are not supported in our Windows Server infrastructure, or that have some limitations based on the pre-configuration and pre-installation. The trade-off in our traditional, if you want the full flexibility of a traditional aspect, the traditional Windows Server standard or foundation, is cost, right? It costs more to deploy, costs more to support. But again, if you need highly customizable solutions or flexible solutions, then that might be the right solution in this type of environment. Now, just to finish this type of view, you can see here that we're looking in this 1 to 15 space, and I don't need to look at email support. I can look at this simplified management, this day-to-day management that I showed you in our dashboard functionality. I can look at my solution services. However, if I need virtualization capable and flexible role-based solution, then I'm probably looking at our Windows Server standard range or enterprise range. If I don't need virtualization capable, then Windows Server 2008, the 2008 Foundation. Who knows here much about Foundation, 2008 Foundation? Yeah, so 2008 Foundation, or the Foundation server for us, is a member of the Windows Server family that is capped at 15 users. So effectively, you have to think about it as Windows Server Standard that is capped at 15 users. And it provides all the roles that Windows Server Standard provides, except Hyper-V Host. So you can't run Hyper-V on it and run virtual machines on it, but it can be run as an Active Directory server, it can be run as a remote desktop server, it can run all the roles and applications that Windows Server 2008 R2 Standard does, except for that Hyper-V host. It's an OEM solution that's incredibly affordable as an entry-level server for organizations in that 1 to 15 space, or as an additional server, an additional add-on server in a smaller organization. So maybe you've got an organization of 15 to 20 people, and you need an additional server, and only 5 or 10 people are ever going to hit that server, Foundation might be the way to go. So what happens if they want cloud deployment? They're looking at deploying their email solution in the cloud, whether that would be Office 365 or hosted Exchange, whether they'll be reliant on Gmail or LiveMail, or whether they'll use some other system as well. What offers do we have in this space for them? Well, of course, Small Business Server Essentials is definitely the great offer here. It can provide that fully integrated solution into hosted Exchange, into Office 365, or it can provide a side-by-side solution. There is no reason you can't run SPS Essentials on site and have all that capability that it provides, plus a cloud-enabled system, and run that side-by-side, managing those users locally and also your cloud users in the cloud as well. Again, the same as well. If I want a flexible role-based solution, then I'll be looking at a Windows Server Standard or a Foundation products. Both of these products can be fully integrated into cloud-enabled solutions. Let's take Office 365 again. If you purchase Office 365 E-Plan or the Enterprise Plan, it can provide ADFS and single sign-on integration into your Windows Server Standard product and allow you to utilize ADFS. Or, with both these solutions, you can run them completely side-by-side and administer them completely side-by-side. If I'm looking at on-site support for Exchange, and many of our customers are still looking at having that on-site Exchange experience and collaboration experience, then Small Business Server 2011 Standard is going to be the right solution for them if they're looking for that simplified, out-of-the-box solution. SPS 2011 Standard is the refresh of our SPS 2008 Standard line, and it includes Exchange 2010 and SharePoint 2010 Foundation, Windows Server Update Services, very simplified console, and supports up to 75 users. So it's a great solution out of the box to be able to support the on-site, on-premise collaboration that Exchange and SharePoint provides, but it doesn't lock you into a on-premise solution full stop. You can still utilize this in the cloud, and you can hook into Dynamics or SharePoint or other things in the cloud as well, because at its heart, it's still Windows Server 2008 R2. If I'm looking for more flexible role-based, again, Windows Server Standard and Windows Server Foundation are as part of that, as they were similar to these environments. To give you an example of how this may change in a 16 to 25 user organisation, effectively what's going to change here, and what the choices that are removed here, is Foundation is no longer going to be an option as the first server on site in this type of environment. So SBS Essentials and Windows Storage Server 2008 R2 Essentials will still support up to 25 users, so they'll still be options as first server on sites. Windows Server Standard, Small Business Server 2011 Standard, again, complete full options for you as an SMB customer or as an SMB partner supporting customers. These are very similar options to we talked before. And again, they still come down to some fairly minor choices. What are they doing around collaboration as their number one workload? What are we doing around their preferred management and flexibility options? Are they okay with an integrated pre-installed solution that may not be able to provide all complete roles that Windows Server provides, or do they need that flexibility or customization that Windows Server provides in that organization? And then sort of determining around which is the best solution for them. If I start looking over 26 users, it becomes a little bit more clearer for me, because my solution really comes down to, I don't think my little link was working properly. Sorry about that. It comes down to pretty standard things. If they're not looking for any email support, Windows Server Standard is probably one of the best solutions for them. However, SBS 2011 Essentials, 2011 Standard can still be a solution for them if they're looking at on-site infrastructure support. They don't have to use the Exchange capability that comes with our SBS 2011 Standard product. They can use the inbuilt simplified console management and user management. However, the cost of SBS 2011 Standard is usually wrapped up in the Exchange capability, so you'll probably find it might be cheaper to go the Standard environment. For cloud, of course, Standard as well. And then for on-site, the choice between flexibility and solution set is SBS 2011 Standard and the Windows Server 2008 R2 Standard product. So I just wanted to give you that sort of run through of where some of these products live and some of the discussions we've been having with lots of customers and the way that they think about our partners and the way that they think about deploying servers when things such as email becomes pretty much a primary workload and a primary tool in discussing not only new first servers on site, but also upgrades as well and how they're going to move their infrastructure forward. So to give you an overview of the SKU differentiation and where we look at it, from a Windows Server BG perspective, if you look at our first server on site, we look at three core things. The traditional server, which I've talked a lot about, our solution server, and then the specialty server range. And our specialty server range is usually focused on role-based, single role-based type solutions. In this case, things such as home server, which is focused on more on our consumer home space, media support and the media experience. We saw a lot of home server V1 in small business, right, because of the ease of use and really it provided the two things that small businesses wanted in that sort of 1 to 9 space. Centralization of their data, being able to store everything on one server and have that backed up, and then backing up of all their clients. So what did we do to really help out with that? We understand that home server is a viable option. However, in a small business, it just doesn't really have that growth capability. What happens if I invested in that home server product and then I decided to actually go a little bit further and invest in another solution server or a Windows server? Then my home server investment is fairly lost. With the Windows Storage Server 2008 R2 product that I showed you before, I can then just integrate this in as a second server into that environment, what we call codenamed Breckenridge, of course, and be able to still utilize its capability to back up my clients and centrally store that information and have that attached to, say, my new LOB server or solution server in that environment. Our solution servers are focused on small business servers. So they're focused on SBS 2011 Essentials and SBS 2011 Standard, or what we called Aurora and SBS Standard, SBS 7 in the old days. And the core differences between them, as I explained before, is user count. One can support up to 75 users, one can support up to 25. Where our SBS 7 focus is more on-premise, Exchange, SharePoint, Windows Server, patch management through Windows Server update services on-premise, and be able to support a more scalable on-premise type solution, keeping with the tradition of our SBS family for the last decade, where SBS Essentials is now focusing on those two paths, both supporting on-premise and also cloud enablement in one package for organizations up to 25 users. And then, of course, our traditional server product is usually split between Windows Server Standard in this space and then Windows Server Foundation. Big difference between those, of course, is Foundation supports up to 15 users. And as I mentioned before, our traditional server, much more focused on the low to medium cost of entry, allowing you this fully configurable installed environment. But because of that, it's going to require a lot more IT skill to manage it, to support it, to maintain it, to deploy it, compared to our solution servers, which are going to cost a lot less to deploy and a lot less to maintain. However, they're not going to be as flexible. You're not going to be able to move and graph and change them as much as our traditional server environment. Now, also in our SMB environment, we also look at Windows Server working better together with other solutions as well. And one of these solutions that I've mentioned before, and we talked about before, of course, is the Windows Storage Server Essentials. So it's a great solution that can be attached to a Windows Server environment for things such as a NAS appliance, extra storage, or a client-based backup. But one of the really exciting ones we're starting to see now in small and medium business, of course, is the Windows Multipoint Server, and effectively Windows Multipoint Server Premium, which is being built to work seamlessly with Small Business Server Essentials. So it's a phenomenal solution for organizations in that 1 to 25 or 1 to 20 space that are looking at both on-support, LOB type application support with SBS Essentials, centralized identity management, hooking into the cloud, and then supporting that with Windows Multipoint Server. So here I want to invite Dean up on the stage to give you guys an overview of Multipoint Server and how it can help our SMB customers.
Thank you, Michael. Okay, so I'm Dean Perrone. I am the product unit manager for Windows Multipoint Server, which is a fancy way in Microsoft speak of saying that I run the engineering team for Multipoint. Has anybody here heard of Windows Multipoint Server? One hand. I beat your storage server record, I think, by fewest number of people who've heard about it. Okay, how about terminal services? Okay, good. Okay. So what is Windows Multipoint Server? Windows Multipoint Server is a turnkey terminal server. That's the way that you should think of Windows Multipoint Server. In the same way that Home Server is a turnkey server that you can do some things in your home with media sharing and things like that, and Small Business Server is a turnkey solution for small businesses. Multipoint Server is a turn it in, plug it on, plug it in, turn it on, and go, and you've got a turnkey remote desktop server, or what was formerly known as terminal services server. Now, you might say, okay, well, how then is it different than a terminal server if it's a turnkey terminal server? There were two things I would say we add on top of being just a terminal server. One, what Multipoint tries to do is drive the cost of the station down to the floor. So folks have used conventional thin clients, HP, Wise, lots of people make them. They're $200, $300 sort of machines, and they go up from there. Those all work with Multipoint, so that's great. You can use them with Multipoint. Multipoint also supports the ability to create what we call local stations. So with local stations, if you can plug another keyboard, monitor, and mouse into that server, it will automatically get created as a station. So if you can plug like 5 monitors into the PC, you can get 5 stations, as an example, which is kind of cool. So you can really drive the cost of the thin client down to 0, because you really don't even need a thin client. There are also some vendors that have made these little USB dongles that work specifically with Multipoint. So instead of having to get like a $300 thin client, like that's a conventional thin client with an operating system, you can get like a $50 peripheral that's got a keyboard port and a mouse port and a monitor port on it, and that you can turn that into a thin client. If anybody's used like a USB docking station for a laptop, right, where you've got a docking station that's just like USB and it's got like a monitor port and some other ports on it, it's the same technology that goes into these USB hubs. Okay, then the other thing I'll just show you in the demo. So Michael, is it the same box here for the? I gotta switch over. It's. See. Okay. Okay, so the other thing is that Multipoint has this simplicity and sophistication at the same time of management around your thin client sessions. I wish I had a picture of this, but I don't. I have 4 different Multipoint. I'm remotely connected to a machine back in my office in Redmond, and I have 4 Multipoint servers in various places around the building there. And I am now using the Multipoint management console to kind of manage those machines. A couple quick things. Folks, okay, we had a lot of people familiar with terminal services. You might notice that Multipoint looks a little, I said it was an optimized turnkey terminal server. So like the start menu is like the Windows 7 start menu. It's a little thing, I know, but it's the Windows 7 start menu as opposed to the Windows Server start menu. And you don't have the links to PowerShell and the links to the server manager thing down here. So to all the users that are using Multipoint as a thin client server, it really looks like they're using Win 7. It doesn't look like they're using Windows Server, even though it still is Windows Server under the covers. And then on top of that, you get the Multipoint Manager management interface. This is going to look really similar to the SBS Essentials and the Storage Essentials interface. It's all built on the same framework. So you know the plugins that use the right parts of the SDK will work across all the products. Okay, so from here you can kind of see which servers, which Multipoint servers you're managing. And then I've got the Geeky Stations tab, which will show you like what hardware is plugged into each one. You know, like which key, you know, where do you have your keyboards and monitors and mice plugged in, what's going on there. And then the thing that I think is really cool is that this is I don't know if anybody's using any of these machines right now. These are screenshots of all of the stations that are connected to those 4 different terminal servers, right? So I've got, you know, one of the servers' names is WMS Demo 1. And so you can see I've got user 1 logged in and user 2 logged in. Oh, is somebody doing something over here? Some of these look like they may be, oh, they're just slightly moving. So I can kind of zoom in here and I can kind of see what's going on. This isn't exactly real time. It's an update that happens every 5 seconds. But you know, as the administrator or the business owner on the network, it's kind of cool to be able to see what's going on, or at least be able to threaten to see what's going on. And you can do all sorts of other cool things, like if I see somebody doing something I don't like, I can select their station and I can say, hey, block this station. Actually, I will zoom back in. And if I block the station, the keyboard and the mouse get locked, and the person can no longer do anything. They have to pay attention. I can unblock the station. Oh, and you know, we really focus. Let me step back before I step forward here, because this is the SMB which to choose portion. The primary target for this product, and the audience I think about most with Multipoint, is the educational segment. I think about there are a lot of places in the world where budget pressures are really, 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 really tight. And they don't even really think about Multipoint as a terminal server. They just think about it as a PC that you can stick a bunch of heads on. You know, it's a terminal server under the covers, don't get me wrong. But they think about it as a PC that you can just plug 5 or 6 keyboards, monitors, and mice into and quickly put out like 5 computing stations like in a computer lab. So a lot of these features on this tab are aimed at letting a teacher have control over the classroom. So I can block the station. I can do things like I can launch applications remotely, you know, where I can take somebody to a particular website. I can do things where I can close applications remotely. Again, this sometimes looks a little out of sync because the thumbnail is refreshing every 5 seconds. This makes for a better demo if I've actually got the monitors. And I can do things like I can project my station to the other station, and that's really for an instructional capacity where you've got something that you're doing that you want to lead other people through at the same time. So if I do something like project my station to all, let's do this. Let's say project my station to all stations. And what that'll do is it'll now take over all the monitors and the keyboards and things like that, and it will basically just be showing a replica of whatever I'm doing on all of those stations. Okay, so that is Windows Multipoint Server. It's a turnkey terminal server with some easier management stuff. And I didn't mention this, but we actually built some better together scenarios with Small Business Server Essentials. If you put a Multipoint server on a Small Business Server Essentials network, it'll just look like another client. So Small Business Server will back it up, and it'll show up in the monitoring reports, and it'll be available for remote access. All right, so that's Multipoint.
Excellent. All right, so with that, what I'd like to do is I'd like to get my team up here that are here at TechEd. So we have Doug and Dean, Duncan and Bodhi up here. And we're going to have a little bit of a discussion. So has anyone got any questions? We can sort of start answering some questions. And if not, we can have a little bit of discussion about some of the hot things, I think, from choosing servers in SMB, migration, troubleshooting, that we've heard from time and time again. So I think your first question was there.
Multipoint server?
Yes?
What's the limit
Oh.
of sessions and what's the pricing compared to standard terminal?
So we need to repeat the question. So but the question was multi-point server, what's the limit of terminal server sessions and the pricing?
Yes, I probably went too quickly through my slides there. I wanted to get to the demo. So there's two editions of multi-point. There's a standard edition and there's a premium edition. Can you go back one slide?
Sure.
So there's a standard edition, and they're there on the bottom. There's a standard edition, there's a premium edition. The standard edition supports up to 10 stations. The premium edition supports up to 20 stations. Now notice I said stations, not users. You can join it to a domain, and you can have as many users in the domain as you want. It's how many stations can you put on the one box. The pricing works the same as for terminal services. So if you're familiar with how the pricing works for terminal services, it works the same as for multi-point. You need a CAL for the server, you need a license for the server, and then you need a CAL for each of the stations. And the pricing is the same as remote desktop services.
Okay, there's a question here.
Double migration question for business that's currently on Small Business Server 2003 with Windows XP clients. They're wanting to move to Windows Server 2000, Small Business Server 2011, Windows 7 clients. Pretty much, is there a straightforward method to migrate the settings from the 2003 server 2011, then back up all those XP workstations and do some sort of placement that'll pull back off that 2011 server to get the CDN settings back?
To repeat the question, paraphrase the question, SBS 2003 server environment with Windows XP. Want to migrate to SBS 2011 standard with Windows 7, migrate the entire infrastructure across, like all the settings, and then also with the clients, making sure that the personalization application settings are migrating across from XP to Windows 7. Go for it, Bodhi.
I'm Bodhi. I'm in the engineering team of SBS, and also the POSIS expert on migration. So that I believe there are two migrations we're looking at. One is the server and one is the client. Now for the server, there is a well-documented, well-known method of migrating the Active Directory, the domain, from the SBS 2003 server to either Essentials or the standard version. For the clients, it gets a little tricky. It kind of depends on what you want to migrate. If it is only data, the easiest way to do that might just be folder redirection. Just turn it on, turn on folder redirection, it goes to the server, and then get the Win7 client, have the folders redirected back to the Win7 client. That way they get back. So it's no more than a copy and paste of the data. But folder redirection also allows you to do favorites, app settings and things like that. So that's one way to do it. The other way to do it is there is a profile migration tool in Win7 that allows you to do some parts of it, but not all of it. It is, I agree, it's a kind of challenging and depends on how complex the settings and configuration you want to actually transfer.
So the backup functionality can't be used to back up from one generation of Windows and restore it to a newer generation of Windows.
So backup, you can do a backup, but that's no more than copy and paste. So the only thing you can do with the restore from a backup is just the data restore. There is an image-based restore that will only allow you to restore the entire image, so you're not getting back Win7 anymore, you're getting XP back.
I might recommend there's some third-party resources for migration as well, too, at sbsmigration.com.
Mm-hmm.
There's a partner we work with who fills in a lot
Well,
of
yeah,
the
let's
gaps
talk about
with-
that. So and that's a question that comes up a lot in our forums, and we have a very documented migration white paper. So what's the difference between our migration white paper and something like Swing Migration, from the SBS migration? And we get a lot of questions. And when would you use them? Do we quietly, do we support Swing Migration? Things such as that.
If you want to, so I'll start with, if you want to know more about migration, come for my session, which is on Thursday. I'm going to take 1.5 hours talking about migration. I'm not going to be speaking about Win7 XP, but only migrating servers, but I can take questions on that. But to Michael's question, our strategy of migration is purely side-by-side migration, where we bring up a second DC on the network. We migrate the domain controller, AD users, computers, everything over the domain, and essentially bring down the source server. So one big interesting thing in this is at all points of the migration, your network is intact. So there is almost no, we can't say there is no downtime, but minimal downtime for users. There's, they're never going to know when, the server actually migrated. The only small caveat is the server name changes. So if you're accessing shares through a UNC path and things like that, it needs to be pointed to the new server after the migration. We talked a little bit about swing migration. In swing migration, notably Jeff Middleton's process, what we do is we bring a temporary server in the domain to migrate the domain off to that, and then migrate it back. So it's a two-step process. We migrate the domain, we swing it off a temporary server, and then finally migrate the data. So that keeps the server name intact. It also allows you to migrate all the settings and the domain, but it does require some downtime when you're switching over the servers. It does require an extra piece of hardware. If you're virtualizing, that's not an issue, but if you are actually doing a physical on-premise migration, that requires, there are pros and cons to it, and it entirely depends on how important the server name is. At least to me, that I think if it's really important to keep the server name, then swing migration might be a better way, but if it's not.
I'd like to just add that there's a feed, the SBS migration site that's a third-party process, and there's a fee associated with that, and also support. The other thing I'd like to add is the white paper Michael made reference to on SBS. Our primary migration supported approach is available on Microsoft.com, along with a couple of important tools. There's a best practices analyzer that you're going to want to run before you start the migration that verifies that you've got a healthy environment and cleans up some things that could cause problems during the migration. So there's a lot of resources on Microsoft.com for migrations. It's a very common request.
Yeah, as I said, I'm going to talk about all that in my session, so I encourage you all to come attend that.
Okay, there's a question over here.
I just want to know which room I'm
It's in the book. Right?
We'll find it by the end of the session. So it's just a question here.
multi-point question. We're a little bigger, I guess, than what media businesses consider, but this seems like a really intriguing possibility for our call center.
Yep.
And I'm wondering what kind of audio effect we have. We would be looking at using softphones, so I'm not sure how the audio would work with that many terminal sessions at one time. Do you guys any work with that? See anything with that?
We have. So the question was, how does multi-point server work with audio? Let me just expose on that a little bit and talk about it. So one, I would say call centers are one of the primary things we think about with multi-point. The idea where you just have lots of that, training facilities, internet cafes, in addition to classrooms, there are just places where you just tend to have lots of terminals without a lot of hardcore heavy usage being done like CAD. So yes, we think about it. A couple things that I would think about considering. So one, each multi-point box will go up to 20 connected stations, but then you can link together more than one box in that management console. So that's fine. So if you need more than 20 seats, that's totally fine. You just end up with more than one box. Two, with audio, we do work. One of the things that multi-point, the engineering that we try to do within the multi-point product is we isolate USB audio devices and microphones for each station. So each headset or microphone, which is what you probably have in a call center, will be private and unique just to the user that's logged in. That should work just fine. If you end up with a USB device that presents itself in the control panel, in Device Manager, as something other than a set of speakers or a microphone, sometimes there are, it's not that there are issues, it's that sometimes that device ends up looking like a public device. rather than a private device for the station. I know it's a complicated thing. We have a multi-point server in the Windows Server Pavilion. It's right near the small business server. So if folks have more questions, I know it's new. You can come and fiddle around with it and take a look at it.
Yes.
Windows SBS 2003 supported 25 users?
So the question was, SBS 2003 supported 25 users?
Up to 75.
Yeah.
Yep.
The new one you're telling us is 15?
No. So the SBS, if you have a look up here.
Yeah, there it is. Top line.
Yeah, no, so and this is the whole thing. We showed you a lot of servers today, and this is that whole thing. There's all these servers that are available, and we work there. So if you look at SBS Essentials and SBS Standard, SBS Essentials supports up to 25 users. SBS Standard supports up to 75, which is exactly the same as our previous versions, 2003 and 2008. SBS Essentials is a brand new product of that family, and is very much focused on that 1 to 25 user space. The 15 came with Windows Server Foundation. So this is it's Windows Server 2008 R2 Foundation server, which is pretty much Windows Server Standard, but it has some locks and limits on it. That is core around 15 users and not supporting Hyper-V, and only available from specific OEMs, right? So, and that's still a traditional server. You still deploy it, manage it, maintain it exactly like Windows Server. So you need a bit of IT skill to do it. Where in our solution server space, Standard and Essentials, we have those simplified deployment mechanisms and simplified management consoles to help with those solution server environment. But there is a difference between Essentials and the Standard user support, user limits for sure.
So that's new for us. For years we had one SBS. And now, starting with this year, we've got two different editions of SBS. There's the Essentials and the Standard, and they're quite different, as Michael's been.
One other significant difference is the Standard requires CALs, for user and device. The Essentials does not. So there's no CAL requirement for those.
So what happened to SBS Premium?
So that's a really, really good question. And I'm thinking I should have put my SBS family slide up. You know what? Let's actually do that. I think it's probably worth talking about. Actually, let me get it up here, and then we'll talk that through. But effectively, as Duncan said, what we've done is we've moved into two additions into the SBS 2011 product, and collapsed the SBS 2008 Premium and the SBS 2008 Standard product pretty much together. But to help with the Premium Edition component, we've done something which I think is actually quite good. Let me just pull the slide up here, and I'll walk through it for you.
So quick introduction. So Standard SBS Premium today provides the additional servers that used to be in the Premium package. Mm-hmm. So we used to offer, and we still do with the new Premium, we offer a copy of Windows Server Standard and a copy of SQL for Small Business. And that's for those businesses that need some of the features that come in Standard, Windows Server Standard, such as remote desktop, and the capability to use application virtualization, or if you've got a line of business app that needs SQL Server. So there's several features that you can't run directly on SBS that you might want to run on a second server.
Yeah. So the SBS family itself, and probably listening to us, it sounds like we've got these sort of two products that are, one's on premise, it's got all these applications, and one's got its little head in the cloud, and what does it actually mean? And I like to talk about SBS as being a core set of pillars. We provide a Windows Server platform, so out of the box it's Windows Server 2008 R2. And as Duncan said, there are some limitations. We don't support Hyper-V as a host, we don't support remote desktop services, and that comes back to that original, we provide a pre-installed, pre-configured, cost-effective solution for small business, but not as flexible as the Windows Server Standard, say, range. We provide a file and print sharing layer. If you've seen SBS before, you've seen it. It's a wizard-driven file and print. I want to create a shared folder, click, 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 and it's done. I don't have to worry about right-clicking an SMB, product, authentication, NTFS, anything like that. We provide an integrated backup solution. Now, in SBS Standard, that's server-based solution. We centralize all the data on the server, we back the server up. In SBS Essentials, that's server and client, and we can back up to 25 clients. We support XP, SP2 and above, and also we can support Max 10.4 or 10.5, I think, and above, with some additional add-ins. Now, one of the big reasons that we support client backup in Essentials only and not SBS Standard is backing up an organization of 10 users is very different to backing up an organization of 30 to 40 users. They'll have completely two different client environments. And one of those environments, when you're moving upwards of 30 or 40 users, you're going to have a standard operating environment. You're going to have server client technologies. All your data is going to be on the server. You're going to have a larger investment in IT. So the majority of those clients are going to be the same. If you lose them, you can re-ghost them down. Well, there's a term from the past. You can re-image them down and then utilize file redirection offline folders, which is what SBS Standard has been set up to do. And there are third-party tools that can do client backup, or Windows 7 can export images out to VHD and you can back them up if needed. But in an organization of 10 users, you'll probably find you've got a lot of client applications, a lot of data sitting on those clients. So let's make sure that they're all backed up. Identity protection, inbuilt Active Directory, that's what it is, right? Don't need to set it up, it's done. No DC promo, it's out of the box, it's done. And then the remote web access, which is that sort of extranet that allows my users to come in. And then we wrap this all up in simplified management. Now, the dashboard you saw before, very, very simplified for that user space. SBS Console dashboard, SBS Standard Console dashboard, a little bit more extensive because you need that. You need to be able to support up to 75 users. You need a lot more control and a lot more management. However, you need a lot more IT skill, again, as the more users are in the organization. So our SBS Standard product was pretty much this. In SBS 2008, it was this as well. Had Exchange, SharePoint, Windows Server Update services, and some other applications that help support that on-premise in the application. When you installed it, that was installed out of the box. And as Duncan said, that if you bought SBS 2008 Premium, effectively it gave you rights to install another Windows Server 2008 copy, and then SQL Server 2008 on top of that within your SBS environment. In SBS Essentials, what we've done is the concept here is we've taken that application layer and we've said, you've got the choice of what you want to do. If you want to do it on-premise, for sure. Go and grab them, Exchange, SharePoint, install them on-premise, that's fine. However, we're going to help you integrate into the cloud. And if you come to our Cloud Connected Small Business session, we'll show you how all this gets done, right? But the concept here is instead of paying for the day-to-day management of the Exchange and SharePoint locally or having to support that, let's just subscribe to that. $6 per user per month. I do it in the cloud, and then I can focus on that infrastructure solution. Now, long spiel to get to the short question, what happened to Premium? What we did is we rolled Premium into an add-on model. Now, one of the biggest questions we got asked is, hey, I bought SBS 2008 Standard, and 3 months down the track, I bought Quicken. And Quicken requires SQL, and I need a SQL server. So I'll just update the Premium edition. No, sorry. Upgrading from SBS 2008 Standard to SBS 2008 Premium just wasn't in the realm. Unless you had volume licensing and did true-ups, and no one did that, right? So effectively, you had to go out and pay full purchase price for Windows Server Standard and SQL Server 2008 and all the cows associated with the SQL componentry and install that. And you got upset because of the bundled price for our SQL Server 2008 Premium product was actually quite good. So we took that feedback on board and went, you know what? We want to solve two issues here. We want to be able to make it easier for customers to make the decision when they want to upgrade or when they want to deploy a premium type solution. And two, we want to make that available to both editions. We didn't want a SBS Standard, an SBS Standard Premium, and an SBS Essentials Standard, and SBS Essentials Premium. We wanted to really just make it easy. So we created this Premium add-on, and effectively the Premium add-on SKU is Windows Server 2008 R2 Standard and SQL Server 2008 R2 for small business. So when you crack open the box, if you ever get a box, you'll see a copy of Windows Server 2008 R2 Standard there, and you'll see SQL Server 2008 R2 for small business. And the only difference between SQL Server 2008 R2 Standard and the one for small business is the license. It's exactly the same product, and the license says you've got to install it in an SBS environment, and it can only support up to 75 users. So rolling this premium add-on model, what we've done is we've given you, the customer, or you, the partner, the ability to make that purchasing decision whenever. Day 1, day 100, and you're also not limited to one. You can buy as many of these as you want. If you've got 2 or 3 applications that require a single server, you can actually do these. The good thing about it, since it's R2 standard, it doesn't have any of the locks and limits that our SPS 2011 standard product or Essentials product. So it has Hyper-V enabled, RDS. Again, you still need RDS licenses, but effectively it's a standard product. So you can use it for virtualization. You can virtualize your first server on it. You can deploy, additional domain controllers, other tasks and other scenarios on there as well. So it's got some really funky things, which is really good. Now, around licensing, and that's the last thing I wanted to mention, is that, as Doug mentioned before, SPS 2011 standard's got a client-server CAL model. Sorry, a client CAL model, which is exactly the same as we've had in previous editions. Each of your users require a CAL. SPS Essentials doesn't require CALs. We give you rights to use up to 25 users and or 25 PCs and clients. So so the one purchase price includes the rights up to those. When you buy the premium add-on, your CAL model for SPS Standard and your user rights for SPS Essentials gives you complete rights to use the Windows Server technologies within the premium add-on, except for remote desktop services, of course. So you don't need to buy Windows Server CALs or additional CALs. All your users have got the rights to access all those Windows Server technologies within that premium add-on. The only time you need premium add-on CALs if you're using SQL. So if I've got 20 users, only 5 are actually using that application that's using SQL, I only need to buy 5 CALs in the premium add-on model. So again, it provides, for a standard SPS standard product, pretty much exactly the same as the licensing for additional. For Essentials, it really provides a cost-effective way to get a great additional solution. It's a great cost-affordable bundled solution on Windows Server and SQL together. I think it's the right thing to do when we start talking about providing an add-on model for the SPS family. Yes?
Just to clarify, if you get Essentials and you add the SQL Server add-on, can you install SharePoint Foundation like Essentials?
So the question is, if you get Essentials, SPS Essentials, and you buy the SPS, the 2.0 premium add-on, can you install SharePoint Foundation on your Essentials server? For sure, for sure. So you could install SharePoint Foundation on your Essentials server without getting the premium add-on, right? So the concept is you need SQL behind it, right? And you can do that, right? So you've got to think premium add-on is a second server, right? So you can install SharePoint and SQL Express. You can even install SQL on Essentials, but then you have to justify those licenses. But the premium add-on is just a second server on site, or a third server, or a fourth server at a cost-effective price. It is cheaper to buy the premium add-on with Windows and SQL than to buy Windows and SQL alone, independently. Yes, the question.
With the SPS 2011 Essentials and up to 25 users, no CALs, you've got a client that's got 20 users, and they've got their desktops, they've got mobile devices. How does all of that? I mean, what is using licenses?
That's a really great question. The question is, I've got the rights up to 25 clients, and I might have, each user actually might have multiple devices
Exactly.
now. They might have desktops, netbooks, laptops. So, it's definitely something we're thinking of, right? So in this current environment, we define a PC as a connected PC. So you need to run the connector on that PC and connect to the dashboard. And there's an easy way to do that, right? And so if they appear in the dashboard, then they take up a computer edition. Now you can actually join computers to the SPS Essentials domain manually underneath that as well, but they won't be managed in the dashboard environment. So the concept here is that absolutely, I think, at this stage you can support up to 25 PCs in the dashboard environment. We are very, very aware that users have multiple devices, and we're working out, in future ways that we're looking at this, how we support users with multiple device scenarios.
Add-on question. So what I'm really, because what I've already run into with regular small business server is, a client has 25 CALs that they've paid for.
Mm-hmm.
Windows the licensing will usually let them get about 10% above that before it starts dropping connections.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they just don't work, And So my concern was running into that with a smaller number of licenses with mobile devices. Are those mobile devices going to do and act the same way as those PCs do? Start dropping connections?
No, they're not, no. I mean, the licensing in SBS Essentials is definitely a gentleman's agreement licensing. We don't put any hard locks and limits on it.
The only thing you will get here is, let's say you added more than 25 users or computers, is you'll get an alert saying, just a warning, you may be out of your limit, make sure you are within that. So it's just a soft limit.
So Bodhi, if I add a 26 device to my Aurora network, does it stop working?
No.
Anybody lose any connections?
No,
anything like that?
no, it'll just work, yeah.
You'll get some warnings.
You'll get
You'll just get a warning.
You'll get bugged warnings. You'll get warnings and alerts. You'll get
So
warnings.
it's actually devices, not so much connections?
It's devices that appear in the dashboard.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
Yes, so the connections are to the Windows Server itself. But the devices that appear in the dashboard for you to do alert management, computer backup, they're the things that are counted within the dashboard.
Okay.
Client devices that can appear in the dashboard right now are XP, Vista, and Win7. XP SP2, Vista, XP SP3, Vista SP2, and Win7 SP1.
Mac?
So, and Mac.
And Macs, yeah.
So, as long as these devices are not consuming more than 25, you're fine.
Yeah. A couple of years ago, Microsoft, we changed philosophically a little bit. We looked at CALs. I remember SBS 2003 and R2 did real enforcement of the CALs when you got up to a certain number in the previous versions prior to that. Now we just sort of, we don't really have sharp teeth in our enforcement anymore. We kind of gum you a little bit. No, but the philosophy is you would never want an end user or a customer to accidentally not be able to leverage their services because they accidentally fell out of compliance or we made an engineering mistake. So the general philosophy we have is now, as a Windows Server division, is it's pretty soft. It's all in the honor system. We trust you to go buy the CALs for what you need. And so I don't think you'll have a problem with Aurora.
We are trying to make that simpler. What we've seen is people want to be in compliance, and by making it really complicated, we actually made them, that's why there are no CALs in the Essentials.
And that is why we have actually not sold this product a couple of times, because we didn't want to take our customers out of compliance, because we knew they would be 15 or 20 users with mobile devices, and would they be illegal at that point, and we didn't have the answer to that question.
Michael, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I know you probably know the answer to this. What's the language in the EULA for Aurora? It's access for up to what?
Up to 25 clients. 25 clients and PCs. Or PCs. So that's what it basically says. The access to the EULA is up to 25 clients or PCs. Right, so that's exactly what so once you go over 25, you're out of compliance with those servers. But as as Dean and Bodhi have said, that we do not put any hard locks and limits at that 25. You are out of compliance. However, we're not going to cut you off and you won't be able to access your very sensitive and data at that stage. However, as I said before, one of the things that we are talking a lot about at the moment is multi-device usage scenarios, and that it's not one PC per person anymore, it's multiple devices, and how we support that from a technology point of view and also a licensing point of view as well. And we started discussions of that quite some time ago, and they're still continuing. So I'll say stay tuned for more information about that for sure.
One more question on migration. See a client, they have 20 users, and now they grow to 30 users, and now you have to move them to standard server 2008. Is there a migration path for that from SBS server?
From Essentials to Standard?
From SBS server to a standard server 2008.
R2. So moving from an SBS environment, say you're 20 odd users and you're going to grow to 30 and you want to migrate off SBS onto Windows Server 2008 R2 standard or something?
That's correct.
That happens quite a bit.
Yeah, so let me talk about that. We know those are scenarios, but the published white papers we have are only limited to migrating from SBS to SBS specifically. However, the migration methodology works exactly the same, because we're basically using Windows Server 2000 R2 technologies for migration. As Microsoft, we only support the most common ones, which is migrating from 2003 to 2008 to 2011, those kind of scenarios. But the philosophy is exactly the same. You bring up another DC, you migrate over the user's computers and the data, and you demote the old server.
Now, starting July, we're going to provide a lot more guidance around migration scenarios off SBS 2011 Essentials for the 26 and above user. And one of those will be a technical migration, and we'll have the plethora of white papers and hands-on labs to show how you can migrate both to SBS Standard if they want to bring in, if they're looking at hosting those applications on site, and also Windows Server Standard, which is, if they've got SBS Essentials plus Office 365, which is going to be a primary type solution for this type of space, and then they grow above 25, then they still want to keep that investment Office 365, right? And how do you actually take that and just migrate SBS out and put Windows Server in and still keep that togetherness and connecting? And we'll provide a lot more guidance around that after the GA of Office 365.
So the bottom line is you're not going to have a problem.
Yeah, I think that's the bottom line. Bottom line, yes.
How does it take into consideration one being the gold policy server and whether or not you're doing like FSM roles?
Can you repeat the question?
What if you have a gold policy server already and you're going up from the SBS? Do you treat the migration process similar to like you would from a Win2K to Win03 or an 08 with like add Force, those basic commands?
Yeah. Basically, we use those commands to. So the way migration works is you bring up another DC, you transfer the FSMA roles, the destination becomes a new GC, and one thing I'm not sure everybody knows, but SBS can only be there can be only one domain controller in the SBS network. So in fact, migrating SBS is slightly limited because we have to work around those limitations. We give you just a 21-day grace period. Migrating to standard versions or migrating from standard versions, you actually don't have any of those limitations. So it's actually easier to use some of those tools in that migration mode.
Great.
Migration sessions.
Your migration session is going to be just
gonna be
fantastic.
I'm already answering the question. So.
Can you just comment a little bit on what you're seeing from the ISV ecosystem?
You just read my mind. I was about to say, and Doug's been really quiet. so Doug, over to you.
Yeah, so we've been starting really with the anti-malware, the antivirus vendors securing down, securing the operating system. And now we're moving towards the line of business applications, some of like the system utilities. Again, working from the box out. We've got on Pinpoint. Anyone familiar with Pinpoint? Okay. On Pinpoint, we now have entries for SBS 2011 Essentials, Standard, and for the Premium add-on. The reason why we did the Premium add-on was that allows people who have 2008 R2 applications can identify themselves actually with the Premium add-on without doing any sort of additional testing, because there's just straight compatibility there. Now, the key thing for the ISVs in that scenario is that in our Microsoft.com, the SBS site, we actually have the direct link from that SBS site right into Pinpoint. So when customer and partners will actually come to the SBS site, they'll actually be able to get direct access without having to fish and find through Pinpoint. So it's very simplified there. So there's two ways for developing the applications. One is the traditional route, which is going through the R2. And then the other one is actually through the SDK for Essentials, which works, it ties you in like the dashboard, the launch pad, and allows you to do that deep integration with the product itself.
All right,
So add on to that, I mean, because we get a flavor of this from the multi-point side as well. Multi-point and SBS are just flavors of Windows Server. So if you've got an app that runs on Windows Server, it'll run on multi-point and it'll run on SBS, right? Like, I think we get way into the deep integration with the console, and they can build a plugin for the console and the whole deal. And that is all absolutely true, but it's not like a requirement, right? If you got an app like Quicken or QuickBooks and that runs on Windows Server, you can install it on SBS and it'll run. You can install it on multi-point and it'll run. Then there is this whole other thing of what are we seeing in terms of ISVs building special management plugins that like deeply integrate into the console, and that to me is like the icing on the cake. But I don't want anybody to ever think that's like a requirement to run an app.
That's a good point.
Okay, so thank you very much for listening to us today. Thank you for these guys. So let me see if I can plug. So Dean, when's your multi-point?
Wednesday at 8:30 a.m. There's a
Well,
multi-point
fantastic.
session.
And if you don't want to go to that,
Come by the booth.
come by the booth. He's got a 4-monitor multi-point setup, which is quite fantastic. And Bodhi, your migration session is on Thursday at 1 o'clock, called Migrating SBS 2011 Standard and Essentials. So make sure if you want to
I'm also
see
going
that.
to be talking a little bit about deploying in virtualized environments and things like that, so it's kind of combined with that.
If you want to see some deep focuses on these technologies, come by the booth where both Doug, Duncan and Bodhi and myself are showing off demonstrations of SBS Standard, SBS Essentials, and Windows Storage Server 2008 R2 Essentials, backing up a standard environment, and also some add-ins as well. We're starting to see some phenomenal add-ins within that space as well. And also in half an hour, we have the SBS 2011 Cloud Connected session, where we're going to go very deep into SBS 2011, how to get into the provider model, what do the add-in models look like, why is it such a hybrid solution, and all that type of stuff as well. But again, I'd like to thank my panel. They were fantastic, and thank you very much for being here today and learning a little bit more about Windows Server and the SMB. Thank you.
Thanks all for coming.